anime has no shortage of overpowered characters, or someone who's just strong in a way that puts you in awe. It's fun to have power level debates and all, but seriously, comparing these freaks of nature with each other is nothing short of a Herculean task. So instead, I want to dedicate this video to talking about them and what I like about either them or their shows. Starting things off is Rai. Remember back when we got those Korean webtoon adaptations? Those were the days. Among the three of them, Noblesse doesn't have the most standout reputation. However, if there's one thing that the anime showcased decently, it's how overpowered its main character, the reawakened vampire Rai, is. Throughout the show, he got a lot of opportunity to showcase his strength. For me, the most memorable one would be the battle against clan leaders. It's the culmination of him establishing how far above everyone he is. He just played with all of them throughout, and this fight is even better in the source material. Next up, we have the man who proved that retirement is just a suggestion. Tano Sakamoto from Sakamoto days might look like your average neighborhood convenience store owner with a dad bod, but don't let that moustache fool you. This guy was once the greatest hitman in the world, and he hasn't lost a step. Sakamoto is the definition of lethal efficiency. He can turn a cough drop into a bullet and a handrail into a shield. He's out here stopping speeding buses with street signs and rearranging the Tokyo Tower, all while following his wife's strict no-kill rule. Now that is true OP energy.
Hera. 対処できるよね。はい。練習でもういましたから。ゾルトラーク。
I went into this expecting a cozy slice of life about an elf grandma, and instead I got a masterclass on how to flex on an entire civilization. Frieren is the new Game Plus player who decided to visit the starting village just for the vibes. It's hilarious watching her get eaten by mimics 1 minute, only to remember she's a walking magical nuke the next. She doesn't scream attack names, she just looks at a demon with that iconic, bored, smug face and deletes them from the server. Watching her fight Aura was the most disrespectful thing I've ever seen in anime, and I loved every second of it. Before the animation quality fluctuated, Meliodas was the definition of short king energy. You look at him and see a blonde child serving beer, but then you realise he's holding back enough trauma and power to level a continent. The dopamine hit I got from watching him use full counter for the first time was unreal. It's the ultimate no you card in anime history. He catches the strongest attack and sends it back with interest, all while looking like he's half asleep. But the real hype comes when the demon mark shows up. He stops being the goofy pervert and becomes a horror movie villain for the bad guys. He's a monster trying desperately to be human. If the glow up was an anime, it would be this. Watching Sung Jinwoo is like watching someone hack the game in real time. We saw him start as the weakest E-rank scrub, and now he's walking around with more drip than the entire fashion industry combined. When he says arise, I swear my soul leaves my body. Why fight alone when you can turn your enemies into a loyal shadow army that sims for you? He treats S-rank dungeons like his personal gym, and there's a primal satisfaction in watching him stomp the same people who look down on him.
人は栄唱なくして魔力を扱うことはできない。ところがその不可能を可能にしてしまった一人の天才がいた。史上初めて無栄唱魔術を生み出した魔術師である。
Monica Everett is my spirit animal because she's a magical genius who's also terrified of making a phone call. I've never related to an overpowered character more. She's technically a tactical nuke, but her social battery is constantly at 1%. Watching her navigate high society is stressful, but then the combat starts and she casually processes 7 high-tier spells simultaneously without saying a word because talking is too scary. It's a hilarious contrast. She's hyperventilating 1 second and mathematically deconstructing a dragon the next. She solves magic like it's a calculus test, and she's the only one with the answer key. This isn't an adventure, it's a nature documentary where the lion is a 1,000-year-old demon baby and the gazelles are, well, everyone else. Clevatess brings a level of intelligence to the monster MC trope that I didn't know I needed. He doesn't just smash things, though he definitely can, he manipulates the political landscape of humanity because he finds us amusingly stupid. I was hooked by his perspective. He looks at heroes and sees annoying insects. When he unleashes his thorns, it feels like an eldritch horror waking up from a nap. There's no power of friendship here, just the cold, hard reality of the food chain. Watching him herd humans like cattle while acting as a pseudo-parent is bizarrely compelling. It's dark, it's refreshing, and it reminds you that sometimes the monster under the bed is actually the smartest guy in the room. Cool, man.
何がどうなってんだ。俺様に聞くな。
At first glance, Mob doesn't give the impression of an overpowered character. Don't be fooled, this is one of the most powerful psychics of them all. I like Mob because he's not just all about the OP. In fact, much of the story's drama is about him and his emotions, how he forms a dynamic with the world around him, and how he channels that energy to become the hero that he is. Still, let's give credit to the powers because they're insane. Some of his battle modes come with the most spectacular animations people have known in the world of anime, and I think that it helps carry the scenes and drive that point home. Mob may be your plain everyday guy at first glance, but underneath that socially awkward personality is one of the most powerful psychics of all. Next in line is Tatsuya from Mahoka. You have a protagonist who's supposed to be one of the lower tier students, but it turns out he might as well be God in a high school student's body. Genius engineer, top class fighter, and plain immortal. Tatsuya seems to be a lot of these, and the entirety of Mahoka seems to be episode after episode of driving that point home. This is a guy who can heal lethal wounds in a matter of seconds, bring people back to life, analyze everything mid-battle, and come out on top with his trusty handguns. People have given him the moniker Godsuya, and it's not hard to see why. Don't get ready to leave the school setting just yet, because Koro-Sensei is up next. There's a reason why the entire premise of Assassination Classroom is to kill him. It's because it's nigh on impossible. Koro-Sensei has shown to be near impervious to everything and is filled to the brim with weapons, often in places you'd least expect them. And that's not even getting to the superhuman intelligence, senses, and speed, all traits befitting someone who was the world's greatest assassin at some point in his life. Well, he does have his share of weaknesses, but those are mostly psychological and barely affect his showing as the Reaper. Crossing him is something you never ever want to do. The fifth character I want to talk about is Alucard. I've had a lot of fun talking about Hellsing. Anyway, it's the perfect Western-oriented anime in the 2000s. Dark, gritty, violent. It's those hardcore things that appeal to a lot of the people wanting a dash of edgy coolness in their lives, and Alucard is the personification of those elements. Dressed in his garb with matching shades, Alucard is nothing short of cool. The cherry on top, of course, is the sheer overpoweredness of the character. A lot of Hellsing is dedicated to him just decimating the opposition in the most over-the-top manner possible, all while holding back. If multiple showcases of power weren't enough, you can try seeing him at his peak. Level 0 Alucard is horror incarnate and a true sight to behold. And hey, if you like what you're seeing so far, don't hesitate to hit that like and subscribe button. Coming up now is Saiki. Saiki reminds me of Mob. The similarities are just uncanny given that they both have psychic powers and have personalities that remind me of each other. They also have a desire for attracting people despite their reservations, just way more pronounced in the case of Saiki. And they're both crazy OP. It's just not as visually stunning in the case of Saiki because he's in a comedy show. Still, that doesn't take away from the insanely large arsenal Saiki has when it comes to putting his psychic powers into action. He can practically do anything with his powers, and fans can attest to that. It's really a joy to see Saiki's cynical attitude create an interesting dynamic with the people around him. Add that to a lot of over-the-top shenanigans, and you have a winner for one of the best comedies the anime world has given us.
この辺で音がしたんじゃが、あれこの壁こんなに綺麗だったっけ？危ないところだった。
Daily Life of a Mortal King is one of the more niche titles around, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's the show that you're the least familiar with out of the things I've talked about so far. Still, it's one of the most honest in terms of titles that sell the main character, because it easily sets expectations. The immortal Wang Ling is one of the most powerful main characters in anime. For the most part, Wang Ling wants nothing more than to have a normal life. That's been the trend with a lot of these characters, right? Just like Saiki, he just can't seem to stay out of trouble. However, in contrast to said character, Wang Ling has powers far beyond human comprehension. The immortality is a thing, but how about reality warping? Add that to the superhuman feats, and you have a virtual god whose skills have been honed after constant reincarnation, abilities that he tries oh so hard to keep in check. Daily Life of a Mortal King is a fun show and all, but it's also quite niche and appeals strongly to a particular audience. If you're someone up for a bit of Chinese anime that features the overpowered protagonist the cultivation genre has become notorious for, you can try this one out for size.
行くか超異魔法オールンダウン
You can point to many things to make a case for Ainz to be one of the most overpowered protagonists of all time. It could be how easily he beat the strongest enemies. It could be how he nonchalantly eradicates entire armies with a spell. Whatever it is, he's here to stay in the conversation for good. It's understandable how hard it is at times to see past the intimidating skeleton appearance and the stoic facade, all while Ainz acts like a supervillain out to conquer the world. But he's more than that, and his loyalty and charisma have attracted many denizens of Yggdrasil to his side. Beyond that shadow of an all-powerful ruler also lies a human side, one that he hadn't let go of. That, in my opinion, makes him one of the best characters I've talked about so far. Or maybe it's just me finding that sympathetic side past that scary non-human form to be very cool. Why don't we talk about Arnos?
どうやら貴様の魔法は戦いには気づいたか？心臓の鼓動だ。
Just like Rai, Arnos is a supernatural being awakened after a long hiatus, trying to come to terms with a world that's passed him by. With Arnos, he wastes absolutely no time in making a first impression. From the moment he had his first fight with that cocky guy in the first episode, I already knew what we were getting. For the most part, it is what it is. He just shows how vastly superior he is compared to everyone else in the show, but I also find myself immersed in the show because how he goes about solving problems that can't just be brute forced. People call Misfit of Demon King Academy the One Punch Man of Magic Academy anime, but I think it's a little more than that. Come and give the show a shot. And who else? The Saitama. Here's the actual One Punch Man. What I love about the show is that for starters, it hooks you on a simple premise. One hero trained so hard until he became able to be everything in one punch. Simple premise, simple show, right? Wrong. I could talk a lot about the intricacies and the unexpected depth from One Punch Man, but we're here in an overpowered characters list, so let's focus on the main character, Saitama. Well, there isn't much to say for Saitama, it is what it is. One punch, villain goes bye-bye. The cool thing about Saitama though is how creative and funny some of those one punch wins are. The Sonic fight comes to mind, you see. While others like the Genos fight are remarkably awesome, overall, Saitama is a cool character who's very fun to watch. Much of it has to do with his personality, on how he shifts from indifferent to serious to comedic. One Punch Man is a parody of the overpowered hero aspects of shows, and if you're up for some laughs and some serious feels, make sure to check Saitama out in his own habitat. 2020 was a good year for overpowered characters. Need some proof? Just look at Jin Mori. 2020 was one eventful year, and we got no shortage of overpowered characters. New seasons of Mahoka and SAO aired, and we got a third guy joining those cool kids on the block. Meanwhile, we also got the god of high school, fighting craziness in the form of an over-the-top tournament arc. Count me in. Jin Mori, the protagonist, is an interesting case. He's not exactly the type of person who wins everything. When you look at it, the progression from the Jin Mori at the start to the guy who has all those insane moves at the end is pretty quick. And I don't mean to make a reference to the regrettably furious pace at which this anime has been adapted. I mean, when you look at it, the Jin who loses his first fight and the guy who's going blow by blow against the likes of Davy and Ilpio at the end look like completely different people. Talk about a glow up of epic proportions. Next up is Maple. It may come as a surprise to some, I know. For all the overpowered things she can do, Maple managed to remain low-key when it comes to discourse on these characters. It may be due to how her feats are relatively tame compared to the world-shattering powers of the other characters on this list, or maybe because she gets a pass because Bofuri as a show seems a lot more easygoing and light-hearted. That's truly a strength of the show in that it doesn't really take itself too seriously and pretend there's some grand world-ending stakes on the line. Doesn't change a thing though. Maple hasn't lost, barring some technicalities where she doesn't technically win. She keeps getting new powers as the plot progresses, but I think that's the point of the show. It's that kind of innocent chaos which makes Bofuri such an enjoyable ride. And to be fair, the writers actually tried to balance Maple out a bit by showing that she can't win everything on her own. She has a lot of close calls admittedly, and maybe that's why she's escaped some people's radars, especially those who haven't seen Bofuri when discussing OP characters. Why not continue with another girl now? I give to you Azusa. Much like Bofuri, Slime 300 is a show that features an airhead female protag with heavy emphasis on keeping stuff light-hearted, fun, and comedic. Maple stumbles upon skills, but in contrast, Azusa does things the old-fashioned way, grinding, and grinding until she reaches the pinnacle of power. By killing slimes. If the title's not enough of a giveaway, that is. Who would have ever thought that diligently farming slimes will give someone all the power in the world? But here we are with a rather amusing result. Slime 300 is a show that's focused on silly fun, which is mainly why we don't see Azusa flexing her powers in the way we expected her to. Then again, being able to come out on top against everything, even when she's not taking things seriously, is nothing to scoff at. Unfortunately, she does have a weakness though. Being productive. Yeah, bring on all the enemies you can bring and she'll breeze through it all. Having homework to do? You can forget that. We'll keep the scale low for the next entry, Lugh. Lugh's an interesting case. As an isekai hero, he differentiates himself from the typical one by being a grizzled, hardened assassin in his life on Earth. Yeah, he's not the plain salaryman otaku type that people have come to expect from the genre. He's someone chosen by the goddess for his skill in life, and with a mission to defeat the previous hero, it would take the best of the best to accomplish it. But while he doesn't have any extraordinary powers that would blow people away, no big time flexing to the likes of what we've come to know from these overpowered characters, though he does use his experience in life to a great degree. Yeah, there's some magic in play, but at least he's not the type to use that magic to drop meteors and such. Personally, I like Lugh for it. Assassin Aristocrat, as people have called the show due to its insanely long name, was one of my seasonal favourites back then due to how it slightly subverts the usual isekai overpowered hero tropes, yet doesn't completely deviate from them to be its own thing. Oh, and I'm always a sucker for cool, calm and collected heroes too.
ただ死ね
Cid Kagenou is another fan favourite who prefers to keep himself low-key.
I am atomic.
Keeping himself low-key and manipulating the world behind the scenes has been Cid's entire gimmick. It's his desire realised in this fantasy world of his, but that doesn't mean that he can't throw it down if he has to. In fact, Eminence in Shadow wastes no time in showing us how powerful he is, and he really does carry a cool flair to come along with it. From his get-up to his feats, Cid is a lot of teenage boys' dream character. Edgy, cool, and just someone for teens to admire. When he gets put in a fantasy world, forget about it. Insanely good fighting skills, the uncanny ability to be above everything and take everything in his stride, and in case anyone forgets, the guy is literally atomic, taking nukes to another level, and it's nothing short of insane. Eminence in Shadow is a fun watch. I admit it's probably not for everyone, but if you do fall in its target demographic, which I do, it's one of the most entertaining shows to watch in the season.
Atomic.
Since we're on the topic of 2022 shows, I present to you Yosuke Shibazaki. Writing this part makes me a little sad for Isekai Oji-san again. It's probably one of the more unfortunate anime out there ever since the big delay wave of 2022. It just can't seem to get a break, getting delays left and right, which is a crying shame, you know, because its protagonist is one of the most fun things to come out of 2022. And as I said about Assassin Aristocrat, Isekai Oji-san also gives the isekai genre a unique twist by having Yosuke exhibit his powers in the real world, and it's wild. Yeah, a lot of the show's presented in recap form, seeing as the premise is about a guy who finished his adventures in another world. From flashbacks, we've seen crazy stuff like him taking down entire enemy hordes in one blow, or the insane magic that he can do. But to see powers like that being done in real life, flying around, freezing people and all of that, it's all good stuff. Isekai Oji-san has been a sleeper hit for me, and its success, in my opinion, is largely due to the premise and how the story just decides to roll with the craziness. And I'd like to ask for some likes if you enjoy what you've been seeing so far. It does help the channel grow, so go ahead and take a few seconds to give yourselves a better YouTube experience. We resume now with Leo Demonheart.
元勇者レオ・デモンハート魔王軍の採用面接を受けに来た
Leo Demonheart doesn't need to add to his credentials. From the get-go, he's known as the one who single-handedly defeated the entire Demon Lord army. However, he's since gone rather quiet and low-key. Maybe it's because of how he was betrayed by the same people he protected. Those same people he sought to save from the demons were the ones who banished him, and I'd have to say that the humans blew it with him. However, if there's any doubt if the former hero who soloed an entire army is still inside the new Leo, you just have to look at the fight against the 4 generals. It's simply a scene where Leo showcases how superior he was to all of them combined, but he's also not just really good at combat. I mean, leading to that point, he was pretty much the demon army's everyman. You gotta be strong in other areas too, and Leo's one of the more rounded individuals here. I'm Quitting Heroing does end with an interesting twist for its last few episodes, so you might want to check that show out. Great plot, and you get to see Leo in action. Possibly one of the faces of overpowered protagonists in the early part of the 2010s, you know we're in for a list of titans if this guy is at the very bottom. Indeed, Kirito has a whole arsenal of skills at his disposal. Being an expert gamer has its perks, and in the world of virtual reality, few can match Kirito. And let's not even talk about that embarrassing stint at the first part of Ordinal Scales. Indeed, Kirito's not invincible by any means, and whilst he's got a whole bag of tricks and access to some of the most overpowered hacks, he still plays within the system. He's at his strongest at the end of Alicization, but even that final fight is something that he, with all of the godlike system powers he had control of, couldn't overcome on his own. While we're on the topic of the 2010s, we move on to a less expected overpowered character with Madoka Kaname. Back in those days, Madoka was really big. However, there's not a lot of people who had the pink protagonist as their undisputed favourite amongst the girls. I mean, that's to be expected, as for the majority of the story that we see, Madoka ends up being one of the most passive main characters in a show full of action girls. But once we get to the latter parts and the mysteries start getting resolved, there's no doubt that if there's a character that's crazy powerful in this show, it's Madoka. I think I've done enough spoiling as it is, so I implore you to watch this masterpiece of the 2010s. But if you have watched the show already, I'm sure you'll agree with me when I say that this cute, friendly girl is quite literally godlike in power. In terms of power scaling in the TV series, nothing can come close to Madoka. Beware the nice ones indeed. Why not proceed with another product of the era? Accelerator's pretty cool, right? The A Certain series has been very influential in my growth as an anime fan. It's all the rage in the 2000s to the early 20s, and while it's super niche these days, it did bring us all the way to the excellent Railgun T a few years ago. Accelerator's someone who's come a long way, with a character development arc that spans multiple seasons and spin-offs. One thing that hasn't changed is the fact that he's overpowered as hell. The title of being the strongest Academy City Esper isn't for show. No, not by any means. His powers may seem simple at first glance, being the ability to redirect attacks if we're going to oversimplify in layman's terms. However, when you do see the implications of that and how he applies it to great effect, it is nothing short of amazing. Oh, and he still gets a slew of other cool powers as the show proceeds, so there's that too. Here's to one of the craziest overpowered characters in the show's insanely large cast of characters. We can't talk about the 2010s light novels without mentioning one of the most popular ones from around that time. No Game, No Life. Oops, what I'm looking at for this entry is actually the predecessor, the far less popular Problem Children Are Coming from Another World, and its protagonist Izayoi. Before Isekai was the cool new trend in town, there's this lesser known predecessor to No Game No Life. Izayoi's powers are relatively simple. If I told you it's just super strength at its core, would you believe that this guy's that overpowered? Now, what if I told you it's like Index's Thorma and has the power to just break through everyone else's powers? Yeah, that's what we're talking about, right? Izayoi uses this power to great effect in the series, and he wastes no time making a strong first impression, defeating a water god just as soon as he gets transported into Little Garden. Combining that overpowered skill with his wits and intellect, and you can see clearly why this guy's a force to be reckoned with. In a similar vein, let's talk MASH. It's a pretty fun show all around, right? It's got a newcomer to the club of overpowered protagonists in MASH, who apparently took lessons from his numerous predecessors who can overcome magic with physical tools. It took some training from hell, but here we have a character who may as well be using magical powers with how impressive his techniques look. One of the fun parts in watching MASH is to see MASH's creativity in action. His entire arsenal of physical techniques is truly a joy to witness, and I just can't get enough of how over the top everything is. It takes a certain level of special to push one's physical gifts beyond their limit, but if you're up for things like that, MASH Burnedead is your guy. Perennial favourite of anime fans from the old days in the 2010s is JoJo. It's got a lot of overpowered characters there, but I think it's time that we give Giorno some love. Giorno is the character that doesn't get talked about as much compared to a lot of big guns in the JoJo universe. So that's why for today, we'll be giving him his flowers, and he more than deserves it. JoJo has no shortage of crazy powerful powers, but gold experience at its full power really should be in the upper echelons. It holds power over life and can deliver some big time pummeling when needed. However, its true potential gets unlocked when it evolves into gold experience Requiem. It's here that its control over life gets pushed into overdrive, being capable of outright erasing anything and trapping foes in a death loop. It's pretty mind-blowing just thinking about it, so how's that for perspective? You know it's coming. Overpowered character list. It's time to take a tour to Isekai World with Hajime. Arifureta is a show that stands as a quintessential example of revenge power fantasy. Underdog boy gets betrayed, falls to near death, and survives through sheer edgy grit, becoming a monster stronger than anything the world's ever seen. I mentioned parts of this phenomenon in Alucard's entry, and I see Hajime as some sort of modern counterpart in that edgy teenager role model appeal, and he does this in an admittedly creative way. Yes, he ate monsters to attain the level of power he had, but a lot of it has to do with the genius use of the supposed weak power he's given, transmutation. Hajime may not like it, given that he primarily just uses his 2 guns, but he's an entire arsenal of magical weapons, and he knows how to use all of them to their full potential in plowing his way through hordes of enemies and striking back against the world that betrayed him. Moving on, we have the plucky slime Rimuru. Just like Hajime, Rimuru had his humble beginnings. He had to crawl his way to the top, taking it one step at a time as he started off as a lowly slime. With each monster he consumes, he gets more abilities added to the ever-growing arsenal. Simple, but boy, the results speak for themselves. Looking at his state right now, as well as the length and influence he holds, you can tell he's been through a long journey. At this point, people have been crowning him the most overpowered character, and who can blame them? He's now become a being that's transcended all existence. We're talking universe-destroying potential. And here's the catch, he's actually not even at his peak if we're talking anime continuity. Light novel Rimuru has surpassed everything you can see in anime form, and let's not even mention his web novel form in the same breath. Last but not least, we have Goku. Is Goku the strongest main character in anime? Can he be a match against all those crazy isekai protagonists? I mean, that's debatable, we can never know for real, but there's a reason why the whole "but can he beat Goku" joke has become a cultural trademark in the anime community. Goku's not the strongest being in his own universe, but he sure can give everyone a run for their money. This is a character with a slew of Super Saiyan forms that progressively get more and more broken, and cheating death isn't exactly anything special for him. I think that a list of the most overpowered main characters really deserves to close out with one of the biggest cultural icons of them all. One who can defeat gods, mind you. Also, one who seems to have no upper ceiling in terms of how strong he can really get.